Yes, I love this land. It takes my breath away.
Hi, welcome to Texas 10. I'm Steve.
I'm Melissa, and we're the Howans.
And for the last 5 years, we've been traveling across the state of Texas.
We have. Today, we're going to a city that's kind of close to where we live. We're going to Fort Worth, Texas, Tarrant County.
Fort Worth is the county seat of Tarrant County. That's important, but most people know Fort Worth for just more than that. And for Tarrant County, we're going to talk just about Fort Worth today. Tarrant County is a big county. It's got all sorts of interesting things. Arlington, in particular, I believe is the biggest city in Texas that's not a county seat. So we'll come back to Arlington and talk about if the Cowboys are ever going to make the Super Bowl.
That is rude.
Well, we'll have to address that.
We'll talk about your Commanders, whatever.
Right. Okay.
But our Rangers are World Series champions.
That's true. That is true. But Fort Worth has never had a pro team. Those are sort of their pro teams too, that they share with Dallas. But Fort Worth is an amazing city. It is their moniker is where the West begins.
You know, it really does. I kind of think of it as the beginning of the cowboy. I mean, it's all about cowboys. In fact, you've got to go to the Stockyards. I think that's your first stop in Fort Worth.
Fort Worth, the Stockyards, the Southwest Livestock and Exposition Show has been going on for years, and it is the centerpiece of cowboy life in this area of the country. It's hosted at the Stockyards. And so there was a month or so every year that the Stockyards were super busy, but it has exploded. And there's rodeos all the time now at the Stockyards.
You know, I was really surprised last time we went because my memory of the Stockyards was from years ago. It's kind of touristy. And you can do the fun things. You see a cattle drive go through. But they have done so much to the Stockyards so that now not only is it a great place for people who are visiting Texas or people who want to see rodeo, people who want to go to Billy Bob's, but it's a great place for all of those who even live in Fort Worth because there's just so much to do.
Well, I call it Disney World for cowboys because it is, if you want a hat, a shirt, boots, whatever, from low end to high end, they have it all. They have the entertainment. They've got great hotels down there.
There's the Hotel Drover, and it is one of my favorites. It has the greatest pool. They do cool things, like I got a bag tag that they branded for me. It's just, but it is a really cool hotel with great art, bars.
The art in the bars are awesome. I would, if you're not staying there, I would definitely recommend going in and having a drink or eating at their restaurant. Some of the Western art in there is it's sort of Western pop art, modern Western art. It's great. It's just a super cool vibe. Then there's the Stockyards Hotel, which has been there forever. It's very historic. There's the Texan, which is close to the Stockyards district, which has been there forever and is very historic. So there's all sorts of great places to stay, to eat. We ate at Tim Love's Lonesome Dove.
Oh, it was so good, especially if you like wild game. It was really great. Quail,
and he's
venison.
got a burger joint down there that's supposedly the best burger joint. You could just spend your vacation or your weekend in the Stockyards and have a great time.
I mentioned Billy Bob's years ago during right after Hurricane Katrina. We actually took care of some girls who had been camp counselors, and they were from Australia and New Zealand. And what did we do? We took them to Billy Bob's.
Well, so that brings up a point because of Texas's major cities, I mean, a city is a city in some respects. I sort of think if all the others, El Paso, you wouldn't know exactly if you were in Texas. You could be in Mexico or New Mexico. San Antonio, the same thing. Austin, you could be in California. Houston, you could be in any port town. Dallas, I mean, if you're just set down there and you look down in Fort Worth, you look up and you know you're in Texas.
You are in Texas. I went to a cowgirl pageant in the Stockyards. We've been to rodeos there. We've been to Tannin Hills and saw blues. We saw Jimmy Vaughn. So the Stockyards are great. But let's move downtown.
Again.
Because I love Sundance Square.
So Sundance Square is the heart of downtown for Fort Worth. And a little bit of Fort Worth history is that it was a cow town. Obviously, that's its other moniker, as everybody calls it, cow town, because the cattle drives came through when they were long drives, which mean they were driving them all the way to Kansas. They came through Fort Worth, and that's where the stockyards started. And then Fort Worth really exploded when the railroads came through, and you could ship the cattle from the stockyards to anywhere in the United States. So it was a cow town and all the rest of it. But in the early part of the 20th century, there was oil in West Texas. And what was the closest big city to West Texas?
Fort Worth.
And so a lot of the oilmen, a guy by the name of Sid Richardson in particular, made Fort Worth their base of operations as they explored for oil in West Texas. And the money that flowed into that town as the result of the successful explorations for oil was pretty amazing. And Sid Richardson was right at the head of that.
Well, speaking of Sid, he was a great art collector. And if you think of Western art, you immediately think of Remington's. And there is a gallery, the Sid Richardson Gallery, or down in Sundance Square, that has some beautiful Remington paintings, sculptures, really one of my favorite small Western art galleries.
And that's another thing, is that because of all of this money, they had to spend it in some way. For a town of its size, now Fort Worth is a big city, but it's not New York or Chicago, but the museum scene is pretty spectacular. If you go to the museum district, you've got the Amon Carter Museum, the Kimball, and the Modern Art Museum, all very close together. And Amon Carter, you'll see his name everywhere too. Right. He was the publisher of the Star Telegram and started the first major radio station there, WBAP, which stands for We Bring a Program. That was his.
They still have that great sign downtown in Sundance Square.
And so his name's on TCU Stadium. His name is on the the art museum there, and he has also world-class collection of Remingtons, Russells, and other Western art. And I love Western art. And man, it is a great city for Western art.
Well, and that, brings me to think too. So we love the art scene, but I also love the music scene. We briefly touched on it when we were talking about the Stockyards, but downtown there's this great little jazz club called the Scat Club or something like that. We saw just old guys that come and jam. It was awesome. I love a stand-up bass, and I love jazz, so that was really fun.
So that's in an alleyway. It's sort of a speakeasy type thing. At the other end of the scale, you have Bass Hall.
And I really recommend that you take a tour, a behind-the-scenes tour of the Bass Hall. Just hearing how they built it, the acoustics in that hall. We saw Lyle Lovett there years ago, and it was an acoustic set. It was unbelievable.
Well, they will tell you, and they are not wrong, it is a world-class performance hall. It's called Bass Hall, but I was talking about Sid Richardson. Sid never married. His nephews were the Bass brothers. And although he didn't leave them a good chunk of his fortune, they sort of got their start, and they made their money in the stock market and whatnot. And they have poured money into Fort Worth, and it really shows.
They have a wonderful symphony orchestra. Shout out to my friend Kristen Mortensen, who plays violin in it. It's really great.
Right, and so high-end music, and really they do Broadway shows there. They have a full season of everything. So you have all of that over by TCU. TCU's our rival. We're Baylor fans, but they have a great city to be home to. One of my favorites in terms of restaurants is the Old South Pancake House.
Oh man, that was good.
And I love it because it's 24/7. It is open all of the time. I think maybe they close on Christmas, but late night after a game or whatnot, Old South is packed, but it's worth the wait.
And there's a great little shopping district down there.
So there's the Magnolia District, and they've got Himes Barbecue, which is a great barbecue. Goldie's is also in Fort Worth, which is Texas Monthly's currently #1 ranked barbecue. So that's not surprising for Fort Worth.
Right. And also, Fort Worth has a beautiful outdoor scene. The Arboretum there is stunning. And then the river that runs through, like when we stayed down, a river does run through Fort Worth. Yeah. And I would walk along the river, and it's just really beautiful. And the courthouse, you drive down and you kind of dead into it. It's really beautiful.
I like the the side of the courthouse coming from the stockyards, because there's skyscrapers behind them.
Yeah.
And you get this great vision of what I was talking about. Fort Worth is a modern city, but connected to our history. And that's really all we have time to say, other than say, get yourself to Fort Worth, especially during the livestock show. But there's rodeos going on all the time, concerts, great food. Go to Fort Worth. And before you do, go to Texas10.com and learn about where to stay, where to eat, all the rest of that. We got all the information for you.
Follow us on our social media, because we'll be sending out little tidbits there too.
So that's all we have time for on Texas 10 today. Thanks to Fort Worth and Tarrant County, and thanks to you for listening.
See you soon.
About you, and I love this land. Oh, it takes my breath away. From the Palo Duro to the Gulf Coast plain, from the heart of the hill country to the piney wood shade, I love this land. It takes my breath away.